Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fork in the Road. Well, this week on the show, we wanted to dedicate the episode to all our Victorian viewers who are hopefully in the final stretch of the stage 4 coronavirus lockdown. As such, we wanted to share with you some of the highlights of our Fork in the Road guests thus far, who have opened up on their motivational and inspirational stories to help you see out the final 2 weeks of restrictions. We speak to my old mate, Wayne Carey, and how he managed to turn his life around post-football. The great Eddie Maguire as well, how he made his own luck as a boy from Broady to the big spoke. And my personal favourite, Mark Choco Williams, gives a speech that made me want to run through a brick wall. Stay tuned to the end of the episode. I'd love to know whose highlights resonated the most with you. Now let's check out what Eddie has to say.
So my mindset completely changed. So you talk about where your mindset changed. My mindset changed the day I opened up the letter with my mum at the front gate at 74 Gerber Street, Broadmeadows, and I'd won a scholarship. I thought, right, away we go. My mindset changed when I went to CBC and I realised I was as smart as, it could go with everybody else and, and won the best and fairest. I could compete, I was there and I could go. Then my mindset changed when I realised, no, maybe I'm lucky rather than unlucky. And then I changed again when I realised, hang on a second, this is an opportunity. And suddenly, rather than being a worker, I was my own business. And it clicked like that. And I thank Colin absolutely for changing my mindset. And from that moment on, I went, right, okay, there's a whole new world to play this. So I went into Channel 10 instead of just reporting. I went into the sales team, worked out how the money side of things worked in TV. Worked out the different areas, very much silos. You're on air, you're off air, you're a sales guy, you're this, you're in publicity, etc. I then went to work on what the industry was all about, and that opened up all these new opportunities, and that's where it all started, and away we went.
It certainly did. Now, the other thing I think with you, Ed, that everyone sees out there this amazing work ethic that you've got, but I think what I've able to see you from the outside, I think that because you've got this nearly childlike enthusiasm in the way you go about your work, that you working long hours is no real issue to you, because it's that really old adage, if you find something that you dearly love, and you're testament to it.
Yeah, it is. And I think I've tried to, the one thing I always impress upon people when they ask me for advice, and I always say to people, don't become jaded. It's the old thing, you could be eating truffles for dinner and you'll get sick of them eventually. People get into jobs that they've always wanted to get into and then they complain. Like, it's like in footy. Come July, everyone in the media is sick of going to the footy and calling the footy. And you go, well, I tell you what about if you don't do it? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. You go, okay, yeah. So you've got to keep the enthusiasm. Of course it becomes a grind. It's like everything. Everything becomes a job. Everyone, you were a star sportsman, but at some stage to become a superstar sportsman or to play at the top level and have consistent success, it becomes hard work. The natural ability takes you so far. The day you walk into North Melbourne and everything's brand new and there's Dennis Pagan and there's Wayne Carey and all that, 10 years down the track and you're running around needing an injection in your ankle to get out on the ground, it becomes hard work. But you've got to keep sight of the fact that this is something you still really want to do. And there will be a day when you can't. So for me, to answer that question, I always had a motto that was my motto, and that was, if I work harder than somebody who's got more ability, then I'm a chance. If I work harder and I've got equal ability, I'm probably going to win. And if I work harder and I've got more ability, then I'm probably going to give them a formula. And there's only one consistent thought there, and that is, how hard do you want to work?
Yeah.
The rest of it will take care of itself. Luck will come into play, different things. But if you work hard, you give yourself a chance. So work to a lot of people is a 4-letter word, but so is luck, and so is rich, and so is all sorts of different things like that I'm just making up as I go. But bottom line is, if you work, you give yourself a chance. And then if you start winning, then that makes work a whole lot more fun.
Great words from Eddie Maguire there. Now we move on to Jake Edwards, former Carlton player, who's doing great things with his business outside the locker room, where he talks about maintaining connection during quarantine. What are some of the other things in terms of maintaining that connection? It's one thing that, again, when we've been doing these walks, a lot of people have enjoyed is just the connection. We're not touching one another or whatever, obviously because of social distancing and distance anyway when we do the Zoom walks, but just that connection with people is such a big thing.
Yeah, it is. And one of the greatest things today is obviously, through technology and we can do FaceTime and that. So I encourage people to, it's going to be quite easy to fall back into really poor habits with lockdown. So if you're working from home, for example, you might tend to sleep in a little bit more, or you might stay up later at night, so you're not getting good enough sleep. So focusing on good routine and structure is going to be really, really pivotal over the next 6 weeks. Yep. And then when it comes to like connecting, really dedicating some time that you would actually pick the phone up, call a few mates during the day, or get on FaceTime. So, for example, this Saturday, I've already got like a Zoom call set up. There's 4 of our mates that we're going to call in, and we're going to have a couple of quiet beers together and watch the footy and just commentate it together. Even though we can't obviously be around each other as we'd prefer, but we can still have a bit of banter and a bit of fun. And yes, it's not ideal through technology, but at least you're still getting that kind of connecting this through technology, which again is what we're doing right now, mate. You're up in Mackay and I'm down here in Melbourne. We're having this great conversation. So you can do that through technology today, which is really, really important. Every Friday, mate, I dedicate about 2 hours a Friday just picking the phone up and calling all people involved in our program. So generally our sponsors and our stakeholders touching base, saying, g'day, how you going? Talking about footy, anything in life, just to keep that relationship kind of flow moving. So it is about dedicating that, but try not to fall back into behaviours where, like I said, you can sleep in, you can go to bed later, and that can really disengage your motivation to want to be around people. But getting outdoors as much as we can is really important too, because the sun creates, good chemical feelings in our body. So that's going to help obviously relate into being happier.
Thanks, Jay. Well, great points. Even though we're in isolation, it doesn't mean we need to isolate ourselves from one another. Now we move on to another personal favourite of mine in Wayne Swash, my premiership teammate, who has his business called Pucker Up, that's doing great things in the mental health space also. He talks of the importance of looking after your mental health.
Oh, it's like a lot of people, Corey. It's impacted our business. We've had to make some changes. But even before COVID-19 disrupted everybody's life, I've always believed in the importance and value of preventatively investing into people's mental health and emotional well-being. Yep. And this is something that I've been, committed to for a long time, 15 years now. But I think what it's done, it's reinforced in my own mind how important everybody's mental health and emotional well-being is. And unfortunately, because of the current situation, it's increased the stress, it's increasing the anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people. And it probably highlights the importance of trying to educate the broader Australian community and individually helping people understand that we shouldn't wait until we're sick, we shouldn't wait until we're incredibly stressed, or we shouldn't wait until we think we might have a mental health condition before we start to invest into preventatively and proactively managing our well-being. So if anything, it's reinforced my absolute belief that this is really important work that we do. We just need to make sure that as a business we get through this, because once we get through it, the requirement of the work that we do, but also the work that other really important mental health organisations are doing will be more important, because so many people are being impacted by what we're having to come to terms with.
Yeah. Oh, look, I was actually going to ask this question later, but seeing as we're on it now, is it pretty frustrating for you that I know what we're doing with the pandemic and you see the reaction to that in order to save lives? Is it very frustrating from your end when you see the reaction to something like that, which we know the ramifications of the pandemic, and unfortunately we've had lives lost, but I sit back knowing the job and the message of what you're trying to achieve and how many Australians each day unfortunately do take their lives. So if you then added that up in the last little period, does it frustrate the hell out of you that we don't have the same reaction to what you do?
That's a really interesting question that you ask, Corey, because that's something that I think about a lot every day. It's something that I've thought about a lot for many years. And COVID-19 has infected a lot of people. And tragically, we've lost about 63 or 65 people as a result of this. Now, every one of those people is a family member, and there's a story to that. So it's important that people don't interpret this the wrong way, but that's 63 or 65 lives lost. And that's tragic and devastating for the families and the friends and the communities that have to come to terms with the loss of a loved one. And I absolutely understand that, and I absolutely support that. But one of the things that does frustrate me is that as a country individually and as an entire population, we have completely shut things down almost overnight and instantaneously to protect lives. And I understand the thinking, the rationale behind that, and we all have a responsibility in that. But to give this some perspective, we've lost 60 odd lives. Every day in Australia before COVID-19, on average, we lose 8 people a day to suicide. So that's 56 lives lost every week on average, 52 weeks a year. We've had 3 consecutive years in Australia, 16, 17, 18, where we've lost more than 3,000 people to suicide every year in Australia. We're at an all-time high with the number of people that have tragically taken their lives. And then to give it some more perspective, on average, we have 65,500 people who are attempting to end their lives every year in Australia. We've never had a response or a reaction from our governments on both sides, our businesses and our communities, and individually. We've never had a reaction or a response to protect and preserve the lives lost because of mental health conditions. And my great fear is, and I hope I'm horribly wrong with this, Corey, but my great fear is because of the exponential explosion in stress and anxiety and uncertainty and loss of job and loss of income, that we run the real risk of having more people or losing more people as a result of mental health conditions and not feeling like they can find a way through that. So yes, it does answer the question, is the short answer. Do I think that things will change? I'm not sure. I wish and I hope that things do change. But if this is what we're capable of because of a contagious virus, and why aren't we capable of responding in the same way to protect and preserve lives of people who are living with mental health conditions? I don't get it.
Our next clip we've got for you is arguably the greatest player of all time in Wayne Carey. And even the best know when to put their hand up and ask for help.
I think that the hardest thing, and I don't know whether you went through the same, you always had, and you went into business straight away, and you seem to have real structure, in your life. And that's not to say, you had everything worked out. None of us do. But I think one of the hardest things when you play professional sport and footy, and this isn't just AFL, this is world sport, is you're doing something that you love doing, obviously. Not everyone has that privilege with in terms of their work. But then coming out of it, you feel lost in a lot of ways, and you're trying to search for that thing that you loved as much as what you did before. And unfortunately, you're never going to go into something probably that you loved as much in terms of playing footy for a job. So, it's working that out. It's time, it's routine. When you've got, or at a footy club, and you've got to be here at a certain time, there at a certain time, and it was structure and that routine that you talked about, then all of a sudden it's over and that's all gone. It was difficult. It was difficult for me, and I didn't think it was going to be, but it was. And I think if you spoke to everyone, I'm sure Swatter might have touched on it when you spoke to him, but I think, it's a real, and I don't mean to want people to feel sorry for AFL footballers. They're privileged in ways, and but it is a real concern after they finish what they go into, and there are a lot of things that the clubs are put in place now to help them to have that to have that life after footy. But it's hard. It really is hard, and it took me a while to work out.
So is it, the first time round, was it nearly based on what you're saying, was it nearly too easy with the deal that you had at Fox, where essentially you worked 5 hours on Saturday and then you had the rest of the week off? So that was all, not having that structure, that probably didn't help.
Well, exactly. I think, you know, I got a job at Collingwood where I
You had a desk, you never used it.
Yeah, had a computer that I didn't turn on. So, you know, and it was, and transitioned straight in, did some media. And I must admit, I didn't have a great relationship with the media. I was in denial about things. And, you know, so, yeah, you're right. I had no structure. The amount of work that I did certainly didn't fulfill me mentally, and it certainly didn't fill up my week. So there were a lot of spare hours to do a lot of things that, you know, that you shouldn't have been doing, probably. Well, not probably, shouldn't have been doing. So, yeah, I've found that transition. I found it difficult, and I'm sure Swat had touched on this, but I've done a lot of work on myself and on that, and it took a lot of work. It wasn't just, you know, it wasn't just overnight. It wasn't just going to speak to someone and then saying, oh, okay, I'm now through this. It was years, not months, and, you know, got you know, thankfully, you know, came out the other side, and, you know, the anxiety and you know, all these different, you know, I guess, you know, toxic feelings, you know, embarrassment, ashamed, all of those things, and then to work through it in the right way, and then get through the other side and feel a lot better. You know, I think I'm a way better person now than I've ever been, and part of that, unfortunately, is because of mistakes and things that I've made. Because I guess if you don't learn from them or get through them, then clearly they're
Yeah.
But I think because of those you know, mistakes, and working through it in the right manner, I just wish I'd started working through it sooner rather than later. But you know, thankfully got through the other end, and you know, I feel much more comfortable in my own skin now than I ever have, and that's including footy. You know, I feel way better about who I am now than what I ever have before, and I'm thankful for those people that helped me get through it.
This episode is brought to you by National Make Good Solutions, experts in taking your commercial property back to the day it was built at the end of your lease. I met Tony Doherty in 1999, and not only was he my physical trainer, he was my mental trainer as well. Here's how he attacked isolation. I've known Tony for 20 years, so this sort of mindset for me is probably nothing short of what I expected and what I know that you're like. But even your vast wells of enthusiasm and resilience must have been sorely tested when, like you mentioned, you had a pro show that was, as you said, was on record pace. Everything's set and ready to go. How hard is it to pivot? I know that you, as I mentioned, you've got these endless wells of enthusiasm, or what we see from the outside, but fuck, was there a moment at home where even Tony Doherty went, holy shit, like this is close to getting on top of me?
I wouldn't say getting on top of me, but cancelling the Arnold obviously was really difficult because it's a highlight of so many people's year. And, you know, and when I cancelled, so the pro show is now only 1/40th of the whole thing. It's not the big, well, it's still the biggest part, but it's the biggest sport that we have. But on the scale of all the other sports and all the hotels we had booked, I think it was 77 professional athletes coming through 19 airports waiting for me to make a call on it 6 days out. And, you know, the weight of that was really, really overwhelming. I still managed to do the amateur pro qualifier. Basically, I built an auditorium in a warehouse with social distancing in place because I figured the Australians still had an opportunity to do that, whereas if the internationals had flown in, you know, they would have been in lockdown for 14 days. And I guess at the end of that weekend, and then the gyms had to shut, there was a moment like, wow, what else you got? Come on, what else you got? And I felt like a heavyweight boxer, you know, had a bit of skill, but I was backed into the corner on the ropes. and I was throwing jabs, and I was throwing hooks, and I was throwing everything I had, but I just knew I was going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to keep punching, man. I'm just going to, even if I get knocked out, I'm going to keep punching. So just to answer your question, so the first couple of times I locked those doors, it was like, it goes against everything I've set my mind up for,
Yeah, I know. And that was one of my questions to come a little bit later. Like, as I said, I've known you for 20 years, and that was always such a symbolic moment of you throwing the keys in the Yarra. And then was that, I know cancelling the pro show was a big kick in the guts and whatever, but such a little symbolic thing of having to call the locksmith and then actually, it sounds stupid, relocking the gym. Was that a moment that probably hurt you the most?
No, honestly, once I get my head around something, I'm like, I get excited by it. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to close the gym. So It was a Sunday night of what would have been the close of the Arnold and all the sports and everything else. And I thought, oh, well, back to the gyms. And then literally one of my mates called that night. I was at home having a drink on the balcony, just reflecting on what could have been. One of my mates called and said, you probably want to turn on your TV because they're making announcements about gyms. And I called my mate back, and I said, they're not serious. It's going to be Wednesday, not tomorrow. So I got up in the morning, and sure enough, I got in here about 8 o'clock, and we had to lock the doors at 12. But as soon as I got that call, I thought, locksmiths are going to get really expensive really fast. So I called one on the Sunday night before he even knew about all this and locked him into his regular rate. So at least I've had a little bit of a win there because he could have slaughtered me because I had no choice. And then, look, it was weird, Corey, closing up the doors, but I was already thinking, okay, well, I think this will go for probably a month. Why don't I use this time to do the stuff I've never had a chance to do? And to be as honest as I am, I didn't really have a moment of it getting the better of me or anything else. I think you just got to deal the cards that you're dealt, and you just got to say, well, this is what it is. And actually, I just said to someone this week, we were talking about it, and I said, if I was the only, because he said, oh, you're really upbeat, you seem to be handling this, you're positive, but what's really going on? I said, no. I said, if I was the only person, if they said, everyone else in the world can stay open, but Tony Doherty, you have to close, I'd have a reason and the excuse to feel sorry for myself. But we're all in this together. And everybody's, been displaced and got some tough times ahead. Cafe, restaurant owners, bar owners, we've got cocktail lounges that will not open again. People that have also put 20 years of their life into a cafe or something, and it's gone too far now, and they're probably not going to be able to go back to it. So I feel actually very, very privileged that I'm in a position where, I can handle no income for a couple of months. I can plough all of my savings back into the gyms. Like in our city gym, we've done even more major renovations than we've done here. We've taken out change rooms and walls and, created new spaces and all the rest of it, to the point where we probably need a little bit longer in there in shutdown to get it finished. But I just think that if we're all in this, why complain? Why not just find a way to say, well, this might be a great opportunity to do something we never get to do. And probably the hardest bit's sort of more the loneliness part of it, because I'm so used to, man, I'm always surrounded with people. Like even I'm in my office now, but it's the way I'm wired, I can't sit still for so long. So I'll walk out of the office probably 10 times a day and just go to the gym and do what I do best and mingle with the members, people from the highest level to the lowest level. And I get on well with everyone. I always try and give everybody time and some good advice and stuff. And I really miss that, just going out and, if you come into the gym and I'm on the coffee machine, it means someone's getting a free coffee. So I'll stand there and do my barista thing, and that's a way to engage in the conversation or to help someone through some tough times or whatever. And I probably miss that people contact more than anything. As much as I'm enjoying the solitude and no one's leaving their weights pissing me off, I really miss that, just that connection stuff.
Our final clip, well, it's my favourite. And Mark Williams, he was my idol as a kid when I barracked for Collingwood. Over my career, I'd heard plenty of great speeches, but this is as good as it gets. Just something totally random, Choco, because I love your passion and the way you go about it. What are some of the things at the moment for all the people out there that are watching this that are going through the second lockdown? What would what would your advice be about how they can not only survive this, but how they can thrive? Because I know that, as you said, you're always looking for finding ways to get better. But I know that knowing your mentality and what you've just said, how are you approaching it, and what's the advice for people out there?
Well, honestly, one day in the first one, I was just sitting around thinking, I understand my young players, and I coach at Werribee now, and I was worried about them because you need to have that light at the end of the tunnel. You need to know, there is something there that purpose.
Yeah.
So I decided, I rang up someone from the Herald Sun, and they said, "Oh no, we can't afford this now." And I said, "Mate, I'll do this for free." So I sat down and penned myself, wrote 100%, this is my article, gave it to them, and they posted a whole page on this is me giving people some hope and me giving them some direction, understanding young people now and what they need. So I wrote a whole page, and we'll post it in here so you can people can see exactly what we're talking about afterwards. But in that, I talked about connection was so important. You needed to find your friends. You need to go out of your way. You've got a bloody phone, but the fact of the matter is, how many times you rang all the people in there? So maybe you just go through 3 or 4 each day and catch up with people that you haven't caught up for a while. That's a nice thing. Even better, let's do it visually like we're doing now.
Yeah.
If we're talking on the bloody phone, Corey, I've had enough by now. I want to see, because I can see you, I can see how you're looking, I can get an emotion from you when I say something. It actually, we're now connecting a lot better. And the face-to-face thing, obviously, we're missing, so let's connect via phone. It's better. But then it's like, don't limit yourself to what you've done in the past. So we know fitness is important. Let's go on, start a new thing. Maybe it's yoga. Now, who would think that I could do yoga? Yes, I can. You know what it's really called? It's called quiet stretching. And, and it's great for you. Well, why not? Let's do that. Why can't we learn something new? Let's go on the internet and find something and learn how to use this computer differently, or learn, it could be a language, write a song, come up with something that might invent something. And as I told you before, I invented this football. Who would think that I invented this Sharon Precision for the reason that I'm trying to teach people how to kick better. So I thought my son-in-law, if you like, close to, 8 years together, my daughter and him, is Dylan Shield. So Dylan and I said, Dylan, let's go down to the local oval and we'll do what you can do when you're home by yourself with one other person as to kicking. So we did a whole lot of articles, and if people want to look Mark Williams champion teams on YouTube, they're all free, and I give them to you because it's about paying forward. So I thought, well, I do leadership stuff, and I do, Mark Williams champion teams if anyone's ever interested in contacting me. But I've worked with some wonderful organisations, and we talk about paying it forward. So I say, well, I did 40 free things for people like what I'm doing for you right now. And it's, why not? I've known you for a long time. You've always been nice to me. I'm giving something else. And to give away something, and so tidy up all your room and find some stuff and give it away because people might need it. Yes, I can do that. So giving little examples to people of things to do. So my players, it would be, okay, let's have a little project. In number order, you have to come up with a 3-minute YouTube clip that is a funny one, that share it for everyone. Yes, we could do that. Form a WhatsApp group with friends. Yes, we could do that. Come up with, so our nutritionist, a great guy, Byron, he comes up and says, we're doing a 30-day challenge, and he gives the players a different meal every week, every day to do. And it's just unbelievable. I have to connect my coaches with their lines. They need to once a week. So there's so many things to do. But the number one thing, quietly now, and I know I'm getting excited, you have to wake up every morning with a purpose. So when you go to bed, what do I want to do tomorrow? It might be 3 or 4 things, but wake up with a purpose It might be I need to clean the gutters. I don't care. That's good. Tick it off. Tick it off. Tick off some things. And so you feel like you've achieved things for the day. It's much, much better for your heart and for your head. So the other things, and I did recently riding my bike around and doing quite a few Ks around. I was thinking about purpose, and I wrote this thing, and you might see it on LinkedIn for me, but I'll send you that as well. But I wrote down purpose, and then I wrote down all the P words that would work for me as far as purpose was. And, you know, it might be play the piano. It might be, pastor is really important to me. It might be play is important. It might be pets are important. All of these things that, they're the things that matter to me. Under you for purpose, unique, it might be unique, or, you know, things that unite people, you know, things that, what are really important in this day to do with purpose. And anyway, I went through those, and I'll include those as well. But it's me giving it to you, and it's me thinking about my teammates, my players, and my family. These are the things that I'm offering you, my thoughts, and it might help one person, one little minute, and that's great, because, you know, we're all struggling a bit. We're all struggling.
No, it's just I tell you what, that little excerpt, I know that even I could get up in the morning, Choco, and it's nearly like a mini 3/4 time address that is. It's very inspirational. I know a lot of people will get a lot out of that. Well, thanks for tuning in to Fork in the Road. I hope you've taken as much out of these episodes as I have. Please click the links below for the full episodes. We'll be back next week with more Fork in the Road.